Sent from Disneyland, history in our hand. So much to say about yesterday and the decades we have spanned. Postcards from the park, this journey will embark. See what has changed and what remains on Sent from Disneyland. Sent from Disneyland.
Welcome to the Sent from Disneyland podcast.
Here age relives fond memories of the past.
If it's your first time joining us, welcome. On this podcast, we'll take a journey into the past and explore Disneyland, Disneyland history, and more, with mementos, snapshots, souvenirs, and postcards sent from Disneyland, from 1955 to the present. Let's start by thanking my patrons from patreon.com. You can join in at any level to support the show and receive snail mail from my trips to Disneyland and from my desk, plus some sneak peeks and bonus content. Special thanks to Random Olive, the first patron to this podcast, and to the rest of the e-ticket patrons, to Nia, Eric Daniels, Monica Seitz Vega, Scott Cagle, Russ Romano, Michael and Christina Cross, and Sheila Harry. C-ticket patrons Serious Inquiries Only, Debbie Weinstein, Jennifer Schneep, Angela Reynolds, Grace Coate, Patty Wolin, and Ben and Noel Bruning. B-ticket patron Joshua Bell, and to the A-ticket patrons Elise Sharp, Zealot Infinity, Alexis Robles, Angel DeBlock, and the Beyond the Railroad podcast. I am your host, your post-host Clocky, and today we have 2 postcards sent from Disneyland. The front of our first postcard has Mickey and Minnie Mouse in a green motor car in front of City Hall. On the back it reads, Touring Town Square, Mickey takes his sweetheart, Minnie, for a leisurely spin in his favorite car, a Model T Ford, affectionately known as a Tin Lizzie. It's postmarked May 19, 1990, with a Marina Del Rey cancel and a 20-cent cable car 1880s postage stamp, Scott number 2263. I assume they visited the park on Friday, May 18, 1990, when park hours were from 9 a.m. to midnight. The weather was a high of 71 and a low of 55. It's addressed to Mr. and Mrs. V. Homer of Brackney, Pennsylvania. It reads, Saturday, 5/19. Dear Nita and Vinny, we are enjoying our visit with Randy, Linda, and our grandchildren. Have gotten close again with our 8-year-old granddaughter and delighting in our 2-year-old grandson. He's so bright for his age and a lot of fun. We had a good time at Disneyland yesterday. Hope you've had a wonderful trip. Love, Ruth and Bob. Ruth and Bob would have been able to catch the 35th anniversary parade at Disneyland. The Party Gras parade started with armadillo hat-wearing performers warming up the audience. This was followed by dancers leading an oversized Mickey Mouse balloon float. The Mickey balloon float represented him in his Sorcerer's Apprentice costume, but with different colors, having a blue robe and purple hat versus the classic blue hat and red robe. Characters on the Mickey float included Mickey Mouse in a jester-styled outfit and Pluto in an oversized ruffled collar. Immediately after Mickey's float was a Donald Duck balloon float surrounded by stilt performers and a few characters, with a smaller float with King Leonidas from Bedknobs and Broomsticks and a few hippo ballerinas from Fantasia. There are a few pushcart floats with jester faces before the Goofy balloon float would arrive with Goofy dressed as a jester and pulling an additional float with Chip and Dale wearing neon sailor outfits and the alligators from Fantasia. The next section had an Under the Sea theme, with performers in crab, clam, and fish creature costumes. The float in this section had Ariel in her mermaid form. Unlike most character floats today, it was being pushed by performers outside of the float, as opposed to the standard float driver we see or don't see today. At this point in time, Ariel would have been the newest Disney princess. The next float had more alligators and Donald and Daisy Duck, with a Pluto balloon float. This float also pulled an additional car with Jose and Panchito from the Three Caballeros. It was surrounded by additional bird and banana performers. Minnie Mouse followed with the push float with ostrich ballerinas from Fantasia dancing around. This was just before the balloon float of Minnie wearing a huge fruit headdress. This float included Roger Rabbit and Tigger dancing in front on a raised platform. The last balloon float was Roger Rabbit, leaning over an oversized ball. The final float had 2 mice, Susie and Perla from Cinderella. The parade would stop and do a full musical dance performance to a song medley that started with Hot, Hot, Hot. This song is memorable to me from a Disney album released just after The Little Mermaid with Calypso songs sung by the cast of the movie. The rest of the medley included Conga, which included the cast grabbing people from the parade route to join in a giant conga line. The performance would end with streamers and would move along the parade route. The parade had 3 stops for this show mode. It opened on January 11, 1990, and ran until November 18, 1990, when it was replaced by the annual Christmas parade. The parade floats and costumes were brought over to Tokyo Disneyland for its 8th anniversary. The parade was slightly altered, but was performed from April of 1991 to April of 1993. Add some flair to your mail by checking out stamps at Enfield Post. You can explore different stamp options on our Etsy site, grab some great deals by following EP Sunday Sales on Instagram, or create something special and have her design a stamp array for your invitation or celebration. You can head over to enfieldpost.com and explore all the different vintage postage stamps you can use on your next card or letter. That's ENFIELDPOST on Instagram and enfieldpost.com for your wedding and vintage postage needs. Enfield Post is the official postage stamp sponsor of the Sent from Disneyland podcast. The front of our next postcard has the right half and boat entrance to It's a Small World. Running through the facade is the CK Holiday engine of the Disneyland Railroad. On the back it reads, It's a Small World. Along the winding 7 seaways, guests embark on the happiest cruise that ever sailed. Disneyland's exciting musical fantasy, It's a Small World. It's not postmarked or canceled, but sent with a 7-cent blue Benjamin Franklin, signer of the Declaration of Independence and Constitution, postage stamp, Scott number 1393D. I assume they visited the park on Thursday, October 9th, 1975, when park hours were from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. The weather was a high of 74 and a low of 54. It's addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Donald Ross of Troutdale, Oregon. It reads, Thursday, October 9th. Hi, we've been here all day today, and about ready to leave as it is all ready to close at 6 o'clock. We'll have dinner at Knott's Berry Farm. Tomorrow we go to Phoenix. Heard that it has been raining in Portland. Love, Mom. Save card for me. I thought it might be fun to talk about how I guess the date someone went to the park when there's limited information on the postcard. For this postcard, I can easily rule out any day before May 30th, 1966, because that's the day Small World opened, and the front of this postcard shows the attraction. Next, I can use the postage stamp. This particular Benjamin Franklin stamp was produced from 1970 to 1974. I can also likely eliminate anything after 1976, because this stamp appears 3 times in my collection. This postcard, a postcard from episode 101, sent to William, postmarked in 1976, and a postcard I haven't used yet, postmarked 1975. Then I looked at my Disneyland Almanac for a Thursday, October 9th, as written on the postcard. The only Thursday, October 9th in the 1970s was 1975. As mentioned on the postcard, the park did close at 6 p.m. You might notice sometimes I'll say, let's assume they visited the park, as it is a broad guess, versus I assume they visited the park, which means I either know the exact date, or know that my deductive reasoning has us within a day or two of when they visited. Also, there's a fun error on this postcard. At the bottom center of Disneyland postcards, there's usually a land icon related to the image or attraction on the front. This one has the classic Tomorrowland Atom logo when it should have been printed with the Fantasyland Castle logo. My incoming postcard is sponsored by the Art Throwdown. Art Throwdown, or ATD, is a craft hour on Instagram, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern or 6 Pacific. Art Throwdown is a wonderful community of artists who love to share their craft, from creating sticker postcards and coloring techniques to intricate paper cutting and unique crafting. It's always a treat to watch a show and occasionally get some one-of-a-kind postcards from the group. Each host brings something a little different to each show. I'll list some of the regular hosts, or you can follow Russ Romano 2021 on Instagram. The front of my incoming mail is an orange envelope addressed to the Sent from Disneyland podcast. It's postmarked February 12th, 2025, with a Santa Ana hand cancel and 3 postage stamps, a U.S. Flag Forever postage stamp, and 2 Buzz Lightyear Forever postage stamp. One stamp is of his head and shoulders in profile, and one is of him standing profile. Scott numbers 5659, 5709, and 5710, respectively. It reads, Hey there, hi there, ho there. Here are some cards sent from Disneyland, sent from Disneyland, sent to Sent from Disneyland. A listener, Don. Thank you so much for the mail, Don. I was surprised to get this package and excited to see all the wonderful treasures inside. I used one of the postcards for this episode and will use the other 2 for the next episode. It was interesting to delve into the 2022 flag stamp that you used, as there are different Scott numbers based on the details about the stamp. For instance, this stamp was available in a booklet or a roll, and even in the booklet, there's a micro-printed USPS just above the blue flag field, which changes its number versus a stamp with a micro-printed USPS above the lower connector on the flagpole at the left. The difference on this detail is from the printers of the stamps, banknote printing versus Ashton Potter printing. Thanks for listening to Sent from Disneyland. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and tell your friends. It would also help to leave a 5-star rating and comment on whatever podcast platform you use. If you'd like to support the show financially, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/sentfromdisneyland. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at sentfromdisneyland or my website, sentfromdisneyland.com. For questions and comments, send me a postcard addressed to Sent from Disneyland, P.O. Box 44, Hood, California, 95639. This podcast is not affiliated with Disney, the United States Postal Service, or any post office or Disney-related properties. Opinions expressed on this podcast belong to the host and guests of the Sent from Disneyland podcast. This podcast is produced and edited by Clocky McDowell, website designed by Misty McDowell, theme song was written and performed by Noah Sunday Lefkowitz. Take it away, Noah.